Helen and Jeremy are from Lemnos Labs, and Ben is from Bolt. And they're two hardware-focused accelerator groups or incubators. So we're going to just drill down a little bit in what they're doing. Ben, why don't we start with you and with Bolt? And I'm probably not the first person to say we're jealous of people who have the last name of Einstein, but
it's an unfortunate problem. Yeah, so I am a product designer by trade. So I've been running a consulting business for designing products for the last couple of years. And we tend to work with, the sort of bread and butter of the typical IDEO continuum firm is the Ford project and the Motorola project and these $10 million things that go on for years. That doesn't really excite me in any way, shape, or form. I love working with 2, 3, 4-person teams, sometimes independent little guys with a napkin sketch and say, here, I want to change the world. Unfortunately, in the product design consulting business, it's fee-based, so you're paying guys based on an hourly rate, and it's hard when people just have a napkin and not a whole lot of cash to be able to pay you. So Bolt really grew out of trying to change the model for doing early-stage product development.
Okay. Jeremy or Helen, do you want to talk a little bit about Lemnos Labs?
Sure, yeah. You can think of Lemnos Labs kind of like a Y Combinator, but for hardware. So kind of our core thesis is that it's never been easier than now to start a hardware company. But there's just a lot more that can go wrong, everything from UL listing to packaging to fulfillment. And so what we really try to do is work with the companies in that 4.5-month period by bringing in sets of people to do design and business reviews. And like we work with PCH for some of the stuff, and we work with product designers. And there's just a variety of skills you need, all the way up to the web component. I mean, some of the Lemnos mentors just are pure web guys because most devices are going to be connected in some way. And it's really about making sure that they've looked at all aspects of the company they're trying to build.
And what's your background?
I spent 5 years as an officer in the Air Force doing product development. So I built lasers, I built missiles, I built some infrared cameras. So kind of the Star Wars stuff and what every little kid wanted to do when he grew up. So.
Okay. Helen, do you want to tell us some of the companies that you just finished kind of a session, haven't you?
Well, we're finishing the session. We have 4 companies in there right now. We've got a electric guitar with a built-in amp and speaker. And that by itself isn't that novel. That's been tried before. But what they've done is they've hooked it up to your iPhone so you can download effects kits, apps, games, all sorts of stuff like that. We've got an electric vehicle designed for local transportation. So 30% of trips are 5 miles or less. And your car's designed for your 500-mile, on the highway at 55 miles an hour. So they're starting with corporate campuses and universities. And then they'll sort of expand beyond that. What else do we have? We have
coffee.
Coffee. Yeah. We've got a connected coffee machine, and it allows you to control temperature, pressure, brew time to really optimize flavor for a specific type of bean. And the flavor profile of coffee is something that we haven't really explored before. People only in the last 15 years have really started to understand wine, but right now coffee is like red or white. And then the 4th company is working on an industrial robot that makes hamburgers.
So at least 3 of those companies are groups. They were sort of started at grad school, and this is like post-grad work in your lab, right?
Yeah, so a couple of the teams actually came out of universities. So the coffee guy is actually, he got a patent on his senior thesis at MIT. Alex, who does momentum machines, worked on it kind of when he was at UCSB, and the car company actually came out of the D school at Stanford.
Right. So it's just curious to me that they didn't finish their projects, or they kind of needed another place and another set of expertise to help them kind of bring it to market.
I mean, I don't think that should be surprising at all. I mean, depending on what you're doing, like let's say you got a master's or a PhD, and you think about it, the product of a master's or PhD is a stack of paper. So, however you got that stack of paper, it didn't matter if it worked once and you got the data you needed and that was it. When you talk about building products, be them complex or simple, that need to be made in China, shipped across an ocean, and work for 2 years, like that's a very different kind of mentality than what it takes to get a product to at the end of a class.
Ben, what's the stage at your incubator? Have you taken companies in yet?
No, so we're just about to open applications in the next month. So everybody feel free to apply. We think of ourselves less as an accelerator and more of sort of a toolkit for hardware companies. So we do make investments and we do have an open application process. So in some ways it does look a lot like Techstars and YC, but really we have a full-time staff that's there for engineering resources. We have a full prototyping shop in-house that's really designed to help these companies build and scale products. and then we help them do all their sort of later stage stuff. So lines of credit for financing in terms of purchasing components from big electronic manufacturers, to build tooling in Asia, and how to deal with supply chain issues, and all of these things that are really important to
So how long are you going to work with
it's going to be a 6-month program, so it's much longer than a traditional accelerator program.
And it's in Cambridge, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, Cambridge, Massachusetts. So what kind? Can you talk about what kind of structure? What is a startup giving up to work with you, in a sense, or what are they getting to work with you?
Yeah, so we think of that in two different ways. I'm a big fan of only raising or having as little money as possible, because I think it keeps people very creative. And that's one of the really cool things about the maker movement. I know it's really hard. I've been through that process, and it's really not the funnest place to be. But licensing is a really interesting way to capitalize an early stage hardware product. If you set up the capital structure of the company correctly, you can actually make a decent amount of money relatively quickly, and then use that capital to leverage, getting into the Apple Store, building your next product, or whatever it is that makes a lot of sense for you. But to come into the program, we either take a small piece of equity in each company in exchange for the capital and the other things that we offer, or we take a piece of your licensing stream if you wind up licensing a product.
Okay, and it's in the company, not the product.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Jeremy?
We make equity investments. I mean, we want to be in kind of with the founders. And so for us, I mean, we're in it for the long term. So when we make the investments, we do it for equity. And then we spend about 4.5, 5 months with them. And during that process, I mean, it's whatever they need. So what's interesting is some founders come to us and they may have done a product before, but they don't understand anything about, how to actually, build a company or what legal paperwork they need, so we'll help them with that. Other ones may have done a really great prototype but have never manufactured something in Asia. So it's about kind of, we have this tailored process of design and business reviews where we bring in sets of experts that are catering to really what the biggest needs of the company are.
Mm-hmm. And but both of you were out raising money to do what you're doing.
Oh,
right?
yeah, that's fun.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, raising money for an accelerator program is really weird, because it's sort of like starting this little mini VC firm. The kinds of capital that you're raising aren't interesting to most big firms, because you're playing with, $10, $20, $30, $50,000 a pop, and it's just not attractive when you have, $100, $500 billion fund to spend. And so it's an interesting sell. You have to get some pretty cutting edge folks. Our capital structure is a little different. We have about half of our capital comes from local angels in the Boston area. Interestingly enough, about 85% of them are guys with mechanical engineering degrees, often from MIT or Stanford, that wind up doing software their entire lives. And they're like, I really want to build something. I'm really excited about this. How can I help? And so that's always very intriguing to me. And the other are actually strategic partners. So these are big companies, Verizon, AT&T, other unnamed folks as of yet, that are really interested in getting in the startup space. And so they're providing not just capital, but all kinds of other things like field engineers and test kits and development boards and networks, which are really valuable, and leverage.
Okay. How about you, Jeremy?
We can't speak to our funding right now, but hopefully in a couple of weeks we'll have an announcement to make.
Okay, but you have been out there raising money.
Yes.
So what's some of the feedback you get on this idea? Like when you say you're Y Combinator but hardware, what's
you're crazy sometimes?
Yeah.
We get laughed at.
Yeah. But you're also helping your companies go out and raise money as well.
And that's, it's you get a very different response, right? When, like a lot of our products are very kind of, they're passion products. So you have coffee, you have electric guitars, you have robots. And so when you go out and talk to angel investors, they can get really excited about this. Raising money, as has been said, for an accelerator, it's a little bit different of a play. But, I think it is true. You need to find people who can see the grander vision. And also, it's not uncommon that you find people who are connected to this community, just because you have to understand how much things have changed in even the past 5 years, and how much easier it is today than it has been before.
And we actually do have a little bit of a focus, at least in the first year or two. We're really focusing on connected products, what the industry calls M2M, machine to machine. Brad, sort of similar things that you've been talking about, sort of the nice software wrapped in plastic. But really, it's any device that's usually relatively simple mechanically that has a connection to some other device, whether it's a cell phone, a Wi-Fi network, or even the cloud directly through a cell connection.
So what kind of mentoring do you think I was struck by being in a meeting with you, and you had a lot of, you've done this, so like it's sort of industrial design and...
Yeah, so it turns out scaling products is really, really hard. It's just there's so many points of failure along the way that a little tiny bad design that you don't even realize you made on some fillet in some mold somewhere could wind up causing some massive problem 2 months down the line. And each change you make can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you can miss shipping deadlines, and you can not get in time for Christmas, which is always the worst thing that you can ever hope for. So just having been through that experience is incredibly helpful. I don't have a sort of a book of all these things that I know, but it's really helpful to say, okay, I've used this vendor before, I know how reliable they are, and being able to offload that information in an efficient way.
Jeremy, you're located not too far from Tech Shop, but your companies are actually located in your space. I don't know if are you bringing them out physically? Okay, into Cambridge. Okay, so talk a little bit about just the space.
Sure. I mean, like what we like to say is you can't start a hardware company at Starbucks. And I saw the founder of Kiva speak last week, and he said, Kiva actually started in Palo Alto before moving to Boston. He said, this is my mythical Palo Alto garage. It's my living room because no one can actually afford a place with a garage anymore in Palo Alto. And so the reality is our warehouse has a full electrical bench, a lot of hand tools, and we're very close to Tech Shop. And what we feel is it's a great resource. So if you need a lathe, a mill, or a water jet, go over and do the heavy lifting. But you need a place where that's yours, that you can leave stuff, that you can set up the test equipment, and go grab lunch when you need it, and it's all just there when you get back.
Do these companies have the connections into the community, like who makes things? I mean, that's part of what we were talking about the other day. Is like, where do I get some injection molding, expertise?
Often no. I mean, we a lot of our entrepreneurs are younger, like just out of college, and so that's certainly part of the value that we feel we add is having those connections. And a lot of our mentors, for instance, one of our mentors actually has an amp company in the East Bay, and we brought him in to talk to our electric guitar company, and he had all this great, like really niche industry knowledge, and he's like, you have to look out for this and this and this and this, and Ari was just like, wow, I never would have thought of any of that stuff. And so, we think that that's a really valuable aspect of it.
Yeah, scaling, again, is just so incredibly difficult. And I'm kind of curious here. How many people have built 10 of something before? Oh, wow. How about 100 of something? How about 1,000 of something? How about 100,000 of something? Okay. So, well done. That's actually way more than I expected. I thought there were going to be 2 or 3 hands. How many would like to be building 100,000 of something? And so that's a bridge that I think is really important for us to try, or a gap that's really important for us to try to bridge. And it's different for every product, which is what makes it so tricky.
How do you, I mean, one of the challenges is the makers are doing very different things. And just as Brad said, he had sort of, like, it fits with an idea they have. Do you have sort of ideas? I mean, you mentioned the connected objects, but do you have like a way of filtering a lot of possible projects? I mean, how are you thinking? Like, if you got 100 applications, talk about how you're thinking about them.
I mean, again, the website went up like 4 days ago, so it's pretty early. But we've gotten about 60 applications so far, and the thing that always strikes me is drive. It's what have these guys accomplished with no money and as little or as much as they've been given so far. And so when you find these guys just clawing to, we got this Arduino thing and it's duct taped together, and I've been riding it around on my bike for three years, and it's we're making tweaks all the time. Those are the kinds of signs that they're really committed to product, and that usually is what winds up driving a great company.
Would it be a positive or a negative if they'd already done a Kickstarter?
It's fantastic. I don't know how that can ever be seen as a negative thing.
Well, if they didn't do well.
But I mean, even Kickstarters that don't do well, you learn lots of things, and learning is really important to building a company. So long as you're open to taking in new insights on how to build something, it's a good thing.
Jeremy, what kind of filters are you guys are Helen?
I mean, we'll consider anything that we think we can make a difference with. So we've gotten a bunch of applications, and we'll sort of screen them. I mean, a lot of them are connected devices.
So how many applications for the next session are you getting on order? 100?
100.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of them kind of look the same. I mean, there's a lot of robotic toys, and it's like, okay, we can't have a whole class full of robotic toys. So it's trying to build out, some diversification and, again, areas where we think we can add value.
And it's really interesting because one thing about having them all in the same space is the companies get to interact, and they're all there late at night together. And for us, actually having companies from very different fields like industrial robotics or consumer electronics, a lot of times one guy will be stuck at something, and you'll walk in and an entire whiteboard will be covered, and they're like, oh yeah, actually the guy at the robotics company knows a lot about optical stuff, and he's helping these guys on that thing. And like, it's just because they're from different industries, they can add a lot of value because it's a totally different perspective.
Okay. Good. Let me, if we get the other mic and see if there are any questions from the audience here, we can particularly, I think even if you want to talk about a particular idea and get some feedback.
Totally, yeah. And we also even, my sort of policy lately has been help anybody and everybody. So I'm probably going to regret this, but we actually have an email address. It's help@builditbolt.com, and people can say, hey, I have this question about this draft angle on this tool. What do I do? And I'm happy to, provide a little bit of help when I can.
First question, Mike.
So besides just the single home run, what about a pipeline of ideas and products in a sort of stream and a way to evolve and carry through that? How does that fit into your model?
Yeah, so the trick is that when you're looking for venture capital, it doesn't really fit the way that they work, which makes sense. I understand that concern, but I believe that you can build a long-term viable company and bootstrap it, and that, it can be really interesting without having a massive, $500 million exit. So we use licensing as a way to do that, and that's the way we're thinking about it now. But again, we're open to really driven entrepreneurs with great product.
Mm-hmm. Up in the back.
So there are a lot of makers, especially around the tech shop space and in the area, whose skills are in prototyping and in sort of first iterations. Can you talk a little more about the licensing process, going from I have this idea and I have this prototype and I'd like to monetize it right away?
Yeah, so the licensing process is not often talked about because the people that are creating the products usually are legally prohibited from talking about a licensing deal, and the people that are licensing it don't want to tell you that their products are coming from somewhere else. So licensing is, I've only done it twice. One has been a pretty good success so far. And it's really, really interesting. So there are really two kinds of licensing deals that I'm sort of aware of. One is intellectual property based. So hey, we filed a patent or some other kind of legal protection, and we would like to use that IP as a big company, we would like to use that patent in our portfolio to build another product. We went through an experience with a product called Unity Remote, which is a universal remote control for your iPhone that we developed internally at the product development company. That was a little different. We sold them basically our ability to build a product that's very different for something that they usually build. So if they wanted to go build this product, they would have had to hire people that they don't know how to hire. So it was a little bit of a different kind of conversation. We were paid an NRE fee up front to develop that product, so we had no risk, which was really nice. We didn't make a lot of money, but we didn't have any risk. And then they took care of all the things that are really hard in building a product, like supply chain management, building tooling, so they took all the capital stuff for that, logistics, supply chain management, and channel, getting into retail, which is really helpful. And we receive a couple of bucks every time they sell one.
Okay, Mark?
Yeah, I'm curious, what does an exit look like? And do you have triggers at 5 years, kind of traditional VC approach, or are we starting to see some modification around, it's an ongoing licensing stream, or you're architecting the business so that a $3 million a year business has just got a nice revenue stream attached to it, or is there, there's got to be an exit or a trigger of some kind?
Yeah, so we're actually attached, again, there's a lot of licensing things here, but we're actually attached to the revenue stream. So it's not the valuation of the company, it's based on the capital that they're receiving. The legal structure isn't totally baked yet. We're just about to finalize that. And it's definitely hard. It's taken a lot of creative and very, very expensive legal hours to figure out how you solve that problem and really capture royalty streams.
Mm-hmm. We're going to get this question from Greg, but Owen are you here? There you are. I'd like you to tell us a few minutes about Owen's from Beta Spring out of Providence. It's another incubator. Well, we'll come back to Greg, I guess. And then maybe Amar. A couple others are in the room that are doing similar things. So do you want to talk a little bit about Beta Spring?
Sure. Should I come down?
No, just go on from there. That's fine.
So Beta Spring is a startup accelerator a la Techstars, very similar, inspired by Techstars and Y Combinator, started in 2009. Each year we have had a few phys tech companies, physical technology companies, go through our program. We, as founders and managing partners of the firm, don't have deep experience in industrial design, but being in Providence, near Rhode Island School of Design, we have a huge network of mentors that we surround our teams with on that front. What we bring to the entrepreneurs that come through our program is really helping them with figuring out exactly what their business is about. So they may have a product idea, but they don't have a business around that product idea. Helping them do legal structuring, some funding, as well as team building, teaching them what it's like to be an entrepreneur if they haven't done it before. So kind of all the meta concepts around being an entrepreneur and building a company.
Okay, great. We can come back to Greg, and then maybe Amrik, you could mention a bit about your accelerator as well. Let's we'll get Greg's question, then go up to you.
Yeah, it seems like in hardware startups, there's really a tight match between the company and a product, that it's really more about bringing a product to market and talking about the licensing. And I was wondering if you've seen examples of companies that are really multiple product companies. Like a lot of the great hardware companies we think of aren't, maybe they started with one product, but they build out to a line of products into really being a longer-term company. Is it just too early for that, or?
Yes. It really, well,
yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, it depends on like the company. Like, so for us, I mean, like we're not just consumer products focused. So like our robotics company, by just selling robots that make hamburgers, that by itself is an extremely large business. For the coffee company we have, they're starting with like a cafe level version, but they certainly have very specific ideas for like an office version and a home version as well. But if you're doing more consumer products, something like our electric guitar company, they certainly have visions for how you diversify revenue streams. So it really depends on like what your product is. I mean, you know, if you look at Flip did exit based on kind of just one product. I mean, they had prior products, but that was their bread and butter. If you look at Jawbone, for a long time they just did, you know, Bluetooth headsets, and there was a couple of different ones, and it's only now that they've just started to get into other product lines, and there's certainly danger in that as well.
And so I would say something a little different, which is that one of the dirty little secrets of the product world is that very, very rarely do single product companies succeed. It's just incredibly hard. And the reason for that is you learn an enormous amount about how to build a product with the right capital structure in terms of, you know, cost of your BOM and how your tooling is made and lead times and all of those things, well, when you iterate. And so the first product, usually you don't make a ton of money. It's really hard. Even if it's, you know, the huge margins that you think are going to happen, there's just all these things you run into that wind up cutting down on that 30, 40, 50%, whatever you thought it was going to be. And then you get better and better at it as you go on. And so your second product starts to look much more appealing. And by the time you're doing your 10th product, it's easy. You're like running it through this meat grinder, and things are just coming out, and you're able to stuff things on a shelf. And you look at companies like Logitech or even Apple and some of these other big companies that are just, you know, spitting out great products. It's because they know supply chain, they know how to do tooling, they know what users want, they know all these things. And in my sort of humble opinion, you can only get that from doing it over and over and over and over and over again.
Okay, Amrik, do you want to tell us a little bit about your accelerator?
Thanks. So for those of you who didn't hear Liam's session, I'm Emmerich Renard with PCH International, and I'm running our hardware startup accelerator. Now, our accelerator is very different from incubators and other programs that have the accelerator. You can think of the accelerator, in our case, as really the entry point for startups at PCH. Most of PCH clients are very, very large companies, you know, Fortune 500 and above. We still have an affinity for startups. We like startups. And we decided to create a special way of working with them within the confines of PCH. And there are generally a couple different categories of companies who approach us on the startup side. So one are very young companies who have a great idea, beginning of maybe electrical engineering, and they need help with everything from industrial design, mechanical engineering, some electrical engineering design for manufacturing, and then onwards from setting up contract manufacturing, fulfillment, distribution, even e-commerce. The other category are companies who come to us from incubators or who from seed stage investors, and sometimes both. And they're looking at things as us typically to scale up the business. They have the beginning of a great product, they have a good market in mind, and are seeing demand, and they need really help cranking out massive manufacturing and the distribution fulfillment to go with it. And that's where we can come into play as well and do tremendous things for the companies. But so we're a totally different category. We're totally complementary to incubators and the like.
Okay. So do you, I mean, back to almost your point here, and in some ways a lot of what you see on Kickstarter are products, not necessarily companies, and they're trying to fund a company. And there's something to that. I mean, I think of like our publishing model is to work with authors on a product, not, you know, occasionally we have a series from someone, but it's just say, you know, how do you fund development of a product? Is that part of your model too? Just say it might just be a product and not a company, like you might then work to sell that product through some other channel, not necessarily build up the whole company, do all of that?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think that's where the licensing things really is sort of driving from. I think that I'm a product person, and I just get product, and I love product, and that's what makes me really excited. And I think that most people are like that in this room, and most great entrepreneurs are product people, in my opinion, again. And so being able to leverage that product to build a business is great. I don't think you need to create a business and then try to fill it with products first.
Okay. All right. Well, good. I think it was a good chance to get a flavor of this. Before we go, Helen, you told me, why did you go to MIT?
Oh, okay. Which reason did I tell you?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. No, back in the day.
You have multiple stories.
I
Okay.
have lots of stories.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I used to want to design roller coasters, but I think when I was taking a tour of, I think it was like Carnegie Mellon or something like that, I was like, this is what I want to do. And they're like, well, if you want to do that, then you have to go work in the Midwest designing John Deere's and whatnot for 5 or 6 years before they let you design roller coasters. So I was like, I'm out.
But your dad was an architect, and he told you?
My dad was an architect. He told me I could be anything other than an architect.
And so, but you did go through MIT,
I did
right?
go through MIT.
But you didn't go into engineering.
Well, I got a degree in mechanical engineering, but then I worked in baseball for 5 seasons. So, a little bit different. Players are kind of like machines, though. When you really think about it through the scout's eyes, I mean, they can't, illustrate the laws of physics, but you think about sort of the mechanics and the moving parts. Very similar.
Very interesting. Okay. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.